Hi everyone, thanks for joining today's session. We will be going through bringing your apps to Teams. And today we are having Rabia Williams with us, who is a senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, and she'll be taking us through how you can bring your apps into Microsoft Teams and how it will be done and everything. So without any more delay, let's get into the session. Over to you, Rabia.
Thanks so much, Sarag. Hey everyone. So, like Sarag mentioned, I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. My team focuses mainly on Microsoft 365, mostly Teams, Graph, which is the data for Microsoft 365, and we also work a lot with SPFX, which is the SharePoint framework side of things. So we do have some content that we can share for the Azure community. So I hope this will be useful. I've made it more focused on Teams because we already have an Azure focus session this week. Myself and a few of my colleagues are going to do a presentation on the same AppCamp workshop, but in a more Azure focused content. So I would give you the details of that session as well towards the end of our webcast today. So I'm just going to turn my camera off so that we have more bandwidth for the presentation. All right, so this is the session. It's going to be focusing on bringing an existing application to Teams. Um, so why are we doing this, right? So Teams has become an important collaboration app ever since COVID hit us. So I think today, one of our top leaders announced that it's 300 million. I did this presentation earlier, so it's 280 right now million monthly active users. But today I saw a tweet by Jeff Deeper, who's one of our leaders, stating that it's crossed 300 million monthly active users. So Teams has become the new way people connect, collaborate, and stay in the flow of work with full context. And since the start of COVID or 2020, monthly usage of this third-party app, third-party apps built for teams has grown nearly 10 times. While just in the past year, it has, the number of applications created by developers or partners or customers, it has doubled. So why are we in this session is because this is an opportunity for you to reach more users by bringing your application to Teams. And when I say bringing your application in Teams, what we are discussing here is a workshop that we have built from our team called AppCamp, which will take you through labs that you can do in order to bring applications that are existing like a web app or web services into Teams as Teams capabilities. So that's what we're going to focus today. And so now that we've seen why we're doing this, let's go ahead and address this. What is a Teams app? So a Teams app, this might be a bit shocking, and it was shocking at first for me as well. An application that is hosted not in Teams, but elsewhere. So a Teams app is basically a zip file that contains three files. It's a manifest file, which is a JSON file, and two icons. All together forms a package that's called a Teams app. But the real application lives elsewhere. So any web app that's accessible online can be brought into a Teams app because basically that manifest file would have all the details needed to connect your client Teams application to wherever your app is hosted. And manifest, like I mentioned, so this manifest file, we will go a deep dive and see all these entries that you need to make to bring your application into Teams in these labs that we're going to see. I'm not going to take the lab today because obviously if you want to do the workshop, it's at least 4 hours worth of time. But the labs are broken down into such a way that I will be able to navigate and show you how you can do it at your own pace to bring application to Teams. Now that we've seen like the basics of what a Teams app is, let's go ahead and check the capabilities that you can build for Teams. right? So when I say capabilities, I like to call them extension points, because Teams app in itself is pretty useful. You use it to collaborate. You've got channels. You can add. You have bots, calendars. Meeting. This current meeting that we're in, it is using Teams app. So in itself is complete, but we have other extension points that you can use, where you can integrate applications outside, like the third-party application or the custom application you're going to build. So these are some of the extension points, tabs, which basically are web user interface. So if you've got a page that displays some sort of an information, you can bring that like a dashboard. You can bring that right into Teams, and they could be called tabs. Then there are bots. I think most of us here know what a bot is. Bots are conversational applications that you can build so that you can, have conversation with a application that gives you direction. For example, like a Q&A or a knowledge base. Message extensions, I will go into detail for message extension, because it is, unlike tabs or bots, it is a bit more Teamsy, I would say. Like, it's a very Teams capability. It's basically enhancing your messaging. So instead of just writing a plain text, you would add actionable cards, or more, like dialogues and things like that into your conversation. So that is messaging endpoint, and message extension, and I will go into detail. And then there is task modules, which are basically dialogue pop-ups that you can create or integrate into Teams. And then there is in meetings. So I'm just going clockwise if you're not following. So in meetings are basically when you're in a meeting, you can pull out some application and maybe get people to, approve something, or vote on something. These are all apps that you would use within the context of a meeting, right? So that's even all these things you will be able to do using the labs in this workshop. And then there are other bits. So webhooks and connectors are basically, when you say bots, they're conversational. They need your context to further give you information. Webhook and connectors, in a way, they're one way, in the sense that when something happens, they give you notification or updates, or send a card into your channel, things like that. So we don't have a lab for that, but it's worth knowing these kind of extensibility points are there in Teams. And then Power Apps is another area that I would not go into detail, because our content basically focuses on more developer areas. Um, but it's worth knowing that even through Power Apps, you can create Teams applications. And Microsoft Graph is nothing but the data, like I mentioned. Everything, I see that when we create an application, you just do not create, okay, when you bring your application to Teams, you don't create the same user experience, right? You would want to include Microsoft 365 data in it, for it to be smarter, more intelligent, knowing who this person is who's using this application, yeah, like the location of this current user, all these kind of data you would need to make your application more intelligent or smart. So if you want to use that data, you can use Microsoft Graph, which has all the APIs needed for all the workloads like Outlook, Teams, or whatever. And adaptive cards, I've just put this here because adaptive cards are very integral when you want to design applications, or you want to bring in all these capabilities, because it provides you with some rich, actionable forms, etc., that you can use in Teams, and it's pretty powerful. So maybe if time permits, I might be able to go ahead and show you some cool adaptive cards as well. There is even a playground where you can go ahead and try these things out. And the good thing about adaptive cards are you don't need to worry about theming or designs, because it takes the form of, or the style of, the application that you're running in. For example, if you take the same adaptive card and for your application and use it in Teams, it will take the Teams theme. And if you use it in Outlook, it will take the Outlook theme. So it's a very versatile technology for you to know. Cool. So since we now touched the basics of the extension points or the capabilities in Teams, I do have a slide, and I will see if I can share this slides or at least a PDF format of this with Sirag. But this is something that we have curated for you to further understand. Where do we use what? So the tabs, bots, message extensions, notification, all these areas, you might be thinking, if you're new to all this, like, okay, when do I use this? When do I use that? And this is also useful if you're in with meetings with clients and other areas where you want to give some sort of an advice on what kind of capabilities you can achieve using these extension points. I can take a quick example like tabs. You want to show dashboard. That's perfect for a dashboard. Bots, when you want knowledge base, where user does not know what to do, where to start, like adding something into a database, they can just say, hey, bot, add this or add my timesheet, add this to this project, etc. Message extension, like I mentioned, it brings out more than just a text. And message extension is really funny because we use it all the time. If you use WhatsApp or any other chat and you use Giphy, Giphy is my favorite app, and I always send gifts to all my colleagues and even friends. So if you're using that, obviously you've been using a message extension, and it's pretty cool. We also have a lab to do that. And notification is when you want to update your teammates of something that's happened. For example, if it's you've put a leave request in and your application sends a notification to your manager saying, okay, something's come up, a leave application is come up, and all that notification aspect will be taken care of this. So worth knowing all that. Now, coming back to our capabilities, I want to quickly share a few things with you. Remember how I mentioned there is this manifest file which carries all the information to let your Teams client know, what kind of capabilities you have in your application. So if you look at the manifest file, and we'll go through it together. If you look at it, you can see that the tabs, bots, message extensions, and in-meeting apps are always mentioned in the manifest file. Like if you go through the manifest file, you'll be able to understand, okay, these capabilities are there in this package because they're declared in the manifest file. And then there are some that are not declared. For example, um, adaptive cards, Microsoft Graph, task modules. These are not declared as something that's there in the package, but it is there in the code for your application. So if you want to add these into your application when you bring them, you have to use SDKs and other helper packages in order for you to go ahead and use these features. Cool. So these are all the basics. And now I will go into the message extension only because it's also one of the most used feature, I would say, I've seen people bring in because it's such a versatile capability in Teams. Right. So message extension. It can use task module. For example, you can start a conversation and have a dialogue, open up, fill in some information, and insert a card. And these cards could be, using an adaptive card to fill in. And there are different access points from where you can create or use an entry point for your message extension. So there is a search one. So when you type something, you can go ahead and search your web service and insert a card in. There could be an action one where, like I mentioned, you could pop up a dialogue, or there could be link unfurling. This is the third type of message extension. What it does basically is, if you've noticed, if you, for example, if you want to share a YouTube video with your friend, you would just click on the share button, copy the link, and when you paste it on WhatsApp, you know how those summary box would come up, like with a small icon of what that video is, and then there is a title and link and all that. That is actually a pretty cool feature because most of the time, okay, so this video is actually going to do this. right? So this is link unfurling. It will provide a custom summary that you can create. So imagine you're in a conversation with your colleagues and you say, hey, take a look at this application, whatever that is in your third party application, and putting a link in. It would be more effective if that link unfurls into a summary and a small card showing what it is with some details, and then your colleague can go ahead and click and find that information. So these are all little tiny changes you can bring into your application, but they are so impactful because you have now change the experience of the user. They might use it more. Your application will get used more, and that's the ultimate goal for any developer, is that how their application is adopted by users and they want to use more, right? So these are all the basics I wanted to cover, since this is an Azure community. And it's also worth knowing these things before you jump into the App Camp workshop. So now that we've seen mostly the basics, and trust me, we have created this content in such a way that even if you have no idea what I'm saying, I mean, it's a lot, right? I mean, it's just probably, if for few folks it's the first time you're getting introduced to Teams, if it's a lot, there are lots of videos and contents that we have curated in the same website. So you'll get to know all this information and more from the website. So let's just jump on to, I'm just going to stop this presentation and let me share the screen with the website. Cool. So this is our tour. I'm going to give you a tour on the App Camp. Right? So this is why we're here. We want to know more about this workshop that will get you started. So this is something my colleague Bob German and I started writing contents for this, creating this workshop. So this is what it is, like the entire lab structure. So we have two paths, Path A and Path B. I will be focusing more on Path A because this is probably the most used and most viewed. I would say this is just migrating an Azure AD web app to Teams. So when I say an Azure AD web app, it's just a web app, but it's connected to Azure AD, and you would be able to go ahead and use multiple labs. And I will show you how we have laid out the labs. You would be able to bring your application first into Azure, and then you add SSO on top of it, and then you change a bit of theming to make it look like a Teams app, and then your core application will be ready. And these are the three main labs you need to do, mandatory, in order to go to the extended labs. So once you have the core application, it is really up to you what you want to try. So we've made it in such a way that they all have their base app as this core Teams application. And then on top of that, you would add message extension or tab, configurable tab like deep links. Deep links are just navigation points, dialogues, and even monetization. How do you monetize this Teams application so that you can put them in the application store, in the Teams application store, for people to go ahead and subscribe or whatever. So we partnered with the marketplace folks. I'm not an expert in Azure Marketplace, but we've got all the information since we partnered with them, and we have put a lab for that one as well. And then bonus point, this is actually something I would love to say to this community is, although this week we are announcing this new lab in the Azure focused App Camp workshop that's happening on Thursday. I'm really privileged to let you know that you people are the first who are coming to know that there is a new lab in App Camp, which focuses on using the same Teams app in Outlook and Office app, which is now called Microsoft 365 app. So it's not just the 300 million monthly active users that you're going to reach. You're going to reach folks who are in Outlook and Office app as well. So there's also a meeting app. For the meeting app to for you to do that lab, you'll need to complete the configurable tab and then move on to this. So this is the structure of how you can do App Camp labs. Now, There are some prerequisites that you need. Obviously, you need a computer with permission because you'll need to install a few things like Node.js. Visual Studio Code is preferred because obviously this is it's a much cooler editor, but any editor of your choice is fine. And Grok is something that you'll need to install. This just makes it easier because it's a tunneling tool. All it does is make your local application available in a HTTPS online URL that is required for Teams to actually run your application inside it. And then you also need a Microsoft 365 tenant, no surprise there, because you need to be able to have Azure app registration done. You need to install it in Teams and test it. So it's actually free, so you can go ahead and try out this link and get one if you don't have. Do not do in production. This is something Bob, my colleague, always says. So yeah, and we also have a repo, so you can find all the source code, like all the completed labs are also in there. Let me just open up and show you. So this is our repo, and all the source of all the labs, I would say. So the core application, you'll find it in here. A031, this will be a core app. The fully functional code is available here. We also have the extended app. So all these apps are fully functional at the moment, and you can try it. But there is no, fun in doing just cloning these things and running it. It's better to go ahead and try it out using the path and going from one lab to another. Right. So I'll just quickly go through the structure. So if you're a learner, what you would do is you go ahead and read. I'm not saying you need to watch all the videos, but it will be worth just at least going through what they are, what we will be building out and things like that. And then you can go to part A, and then you can just start following what features you're going to build. There's also these videos that we created for people who like watching videos and stuff, just reading stuff. I would highly recommend reading though, because it has all the nitty-gritty details that you need to know. Why we're doing this, why do you need ngrok and things like that. So everything is in here, registering. If you want to jump into something straight away, you can do that. We also put like small information on what is that, what is this, and things like that. So feel free to go ahead and look into these videos. Every instruction is there for you, like literally all the instructions we have. And if there is anything missing, do let us know as well. You can go ahead into our repository and put issues in here as well. Right, so once you're in path A, you can complete all these three, especially the SSO one is pretty interesting because at first you will be using MCell to connect your application to Azure AD, and then you will use the Teams SSO. It's a different SSO altogether. For Teams, it's a bit different. So this will be something new if you're trying out for the first time for Teams, that you will be doing all these steps. And creating the package. So this is the package, like I mentioned, the manifest file and the icons. And then you would be able to upload your app package into Teams. And let me see. So these are the extended labs. So if you're saying, hey, I want to jump straight into adding a message extension to the core lab. So once you've done all the core lab, the main one, you will be guided on what next to do. So we have bot registration, for the message extension, because message extension requires you to have a bot behind the scenes for your web service to communicate with Teams application. At the moment, this is a structure. And then you can have all the other information laid out to you so that you can build something like this. So this is a message extension. And you know what? Instead of just showing you all these images, I'm just going to go ahead and show you if it allows me. I'll just run my application that I have locally and see if I can show you the app working. Cool. So let me open up my code. Right. So if you have any questions, we can have it towards the end of the session. Or if you have any question, please don't forget to go to the repo and add issues, questions, whatever you have. And you could also reach out to Surag, and maybe you can consolidate all the questions and I could reply to them as well. It's no problem. Either way, I'm happy to help with anyone who's getting started and is stuck on something, especially this one, these labs. So happy to help in that. And let me also just show you, just in case, all the resources that you need is in here. It's like the Teams development documentation, tools that you need, or the tools you can use, samples if you want to try out some samples, about SSO in detail. Like I mentioned, Teams SSO is completely different thing. So if you want to go ahead and read more about it, you can do that. There are also videos in here. And yeah, basically everything we've tried as much as possible to curate everything so you can find all the information that is spread out across the lab in this one place. And monetize in one is really cool as well. I mean, in the extended labs, you will learn how you can tie them up to licensing and other bits. So you can check if a user has a license to your product and things like that. It's really cool. So have a look and try out. I would say jump into the A path, complete the core lab, and then jump into the extended labs. Otherwise, it will be a bit messy for you. So I'm going to go ahead and start my application and show you. It's always better to show it working. So this is basically what we're doing in the first three labs. You would bring an application. So this is the Northwind orders application that you will be building in this lab. It is based off on the Northwind traders database. If there's anybody who is here from the 80s or 90s, you probably have worked with the Northwind Traders database at some point to do some mock-up or anything. It's just a free database available online. So using that database, we have gone ahead and created this application, which is at the moment is just a dashboard. I've started my application. So let me see. Yeah, so it just shows you the order. So now it's not in Teams, right? So this is how we are showing you, but it's still connected to Azure AD. That's why you see this person's information in here. It's connected to Azure AD. And this application will now be converted into an application within Teams. So this is one, I think the first set of labs that you would do is bringing something that's already online into Teams. And in Teams, how it would look like is in a Teams format, obviously. So if you go to My Orders, you can see the same one, but in Teams. So within Teams, so we've gotten rid of the user information because it already has SSO in it. So in Teams, you can go ahead and see how it looks like. And if you jump into one of the orders, you can see there are different buttons. They're all different labs, to be honest. I just have this one application that has all the labs incorporated in it. So this one, so you'll be building out these things one by one, adding notes. This is the dialog pop-up that I mentioned. You'll be building that, how to do that. Chat is basically opening up a chat within this order. You're on this order. You want to open up a chat with someone, you can do that. You see that chat is already opened up for hi to discuss about this particular order. These are all trivial. I mean, when you look at it, they're all simple features, but they're all using the real Microsoft Teams integration points. So it's using APIs from the SDK, which is the Teams JavaScript SDK. So it's pretty useful for you to understand, hey, how do I start a call? How do I do this? How do I start a group chat? All these things you will be able to understand once you go through these labs. So this basically is what it does. You can go through the products. For example, chai is my favorite drink. You can check the stock. So this is where I'm going to bring the fun bit in, which is the message extension. Now you see that chai is in stock. It has 39 units at the moment. And if I go to this discussion here, I can go ahead and the entry point for the message extension. is here. So you start a conversation and you say, okay, I want to use the Northwind Orders app, and I'm going to look for chai. So I can click on chai, and it will show me this nice looking card, right? And this card is nothing but an adaptive card, and it's saying, okay, use this form to chat with the dealer and blah blah. And I'm going to go ahead and update the stock to say 70, and I can do that within this conversation. I didn't actually open up another website and update the stock. I did everything while I'm having a conversation with my teammates. And this is the beauty of bringing application into teams, because you're redefining or reimagining how you work every day. So let me just go ahead and check chai again. If I go to products and beverages and chai, now it's updated to 70. So it was that simple for me to go ahead and update things, and while I'm still in conversation. That's the beauty of bringing application to where you are, where the user is, so they don't lose the context. They're talking about a particular product or whatever they're talking about, they can rightly so interact and get things done right there in that conversation. So that's one of the good things about message extensions. And another bit I wanted to show you quickly is that these message extensions, they also work in Outlook. So if you go to not just message extension, by the way, all the applications, and this has only been recently sort of like, it was in preview. So if you have a manifest file of certain version up, then all your applications will automatically start showing up. For example, tabs and at the moment, and message extension, they would start showing up in Outlook, and maybe in future in other areas as well. So let me just show you how the same format is now available in Outlook. So you can do the same thing, but maybe some other product. I can go ahead and put this information in, and I could probably assign it to someone and say, hey, update the stock, update the stock and things like that. So wherever I am, I might be actually dealing with an email with a vendor outside of Teams. So I'm here. I want to get my work done. In that case, I don't need to even switch to Teams. I can just go ahead. I can go ahead and update or do my work right here. So the same thing, you can actually even bring out the application. For example, if I go to the store, I can see the same application in here if I add it to Outlook. So that's okay. Let me just show you. Yeah, I actually have another thing to show you for Outlook. Let me bring that. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, same application in Outlook, and what we saw earlier, I could just, wherever I am, and you also see the theming has also changed. It's blue instead of purple. So it's really around like how much less work you need to get your application in multiple surfaces, but you got all that working with just one application. So as an admin, if there's any admin out here, this makes it easier. You're actually shipping things in one particular app. Like this whole Teams app can actually be used in multiple surfaces, like in Outlook or in Microsoft 365. And I will jump into that concept in a bit. So this was the application. I'm just going to stop my app, and we'll jump on to the presentation again. A few more bits and pieces to discuss, and then we can go on to questions. Okay, so let me share again. Right, so what we saw was the tour of App Camp, and we also saw my demo of all the capabilities that you might be building. So like I mentioned, this is where you can find App Camp. You can just scan code, you'll go to this link, aka.ms/app-camp, and this is the website that I just showed you. We also have lots of videos there, like I mentioned, and these are the prerequisite. Like you need to have a Microsoft 365 tenant, you need to have Node.js, an editor of your choice. We prefer Visual Studio Code and also a tunneling program like ngrok. Right. And this is the bonus lab that I mentioned is being announced this week. Actually, it's actually live, but you folks are the first to, even see this new first demo. So like I mentioned, the manifest update would let you let your application run in more places than one. Let me just quickly show you what you're going to build in this new lab. Oops, sorry. Okay, so this is a video, obviously, because it's a new lab. I want folks to go ahead and try it. So in this My Orders page, as you can see, in the first few steps, you would just make your app work in Outlook, in Teams, and in Microsoft 365 app, previously known as Office app. Now there are three surfaces in which your application works, right? It's pretty cool. But it's not good enough, probably, because you just don't want your application in three different areas. That's not the whole point of having this idea. It's also that you use the capabilities each of these host app. There's a reason why you go to Teams or you go to Outlook, and for example, this is the order. You would love to chat with someone or maybe a vendor or someone based on this particular order. You will be building this feature like I showed you earlier, and that's because this is what Teams does best. Now, if you're in Outlook, you don't want chat, right? Because you don't chat in Outlook. You want to email folks. So you will, yeah, so you will basically create or build capabilities that each of these application is a hero of. Outlook is a place you would go ahead and mail people, right? So this will also teach you that these labs are also teaching you that check if your particular capability that you're integrating is in a host app or not. Like this M365 app does not have a chat or mail capability, and that's why it was empty. So it will clearly give you an idea of why you're doing this. Why are you putting this application in multiple hosts? It's not just for them to show up or in three different areas, but also to bring the qualities or the capabilities that each of these host apps like Teams or Outlook is a hero of. So yeah, this is something I wanted to quickly show you that we have added as a new lab. And just to quickly recap on the benefits of having these applications show in different areas. First of all, app discovery. Wherever your users are, if they're in Teams or Outlook, they would be able to see that there is an application like this and start using it. I've personally not seen my leaders or CEOs type of people use Teams to chat with you. They will always be sending emails, right? They're always on Outlook. Imagine if your application is being used by your CEO because it is actually showing up in Outlook and it is providing value to her or him. Then it'll be an impactful stuff, right? So that's the main thing. App discovery is one of the main things. As a developer, you will be happy that it will show up in more places than one. And IT admins, like I mentioned before, you don't have to manage multiple apps. Your apps having in different areas means you need to have separate apps for Outlook, separate app for Teams. No, but you can have this one unified app package that you can manage, and that's great too. And for user, if you think about it, what does a user hate the most is changes in the way they work, right? If you're going to introduce a change like bringing a Teams application, changing the way they work, they don't want to have more changes. But if they're comfortable using this Teams app, they might be okay to try it out in Outlook. Okay, so this is how it works in Outlook, but it's same application, similar workflow, similar structure, they will be more willing to use this. So it will also increase user adoption in another way. And they're all connected, like I mentioned. They're not moving away from their the app they're in, like Teams, having conversation with their teammates and then bringing out data from their third-party app. They're not going into a website, etc. Feeling more connected within the app that they're in. So these are the benefits. The next steps I would like to say is go ahead and try out that lab. It's over there. If I have time, I would show you, but I'm also waiting for questions. But there's something else I also want to say is that we have the same workshop, but in a more, different light. Like I mentioned, it is for the Azure community again. So the contents are focused a bit on Azure. We are also touching on the Teams toolkit, which is a tool that you can use to create, application, deploy, everything done from the same Visual Studio Code extension. So we'll be covering that as well. So me and my colleague Bob German, and we also have a surprise guest, Gary Trinder, to speak about a few things in this one. So it's happening on Friday midnight my time. It's a really unfortunate time for folks in Australia, but if you are available in a time zone that is most suitable, then please do check it out. And the registration is open at the moment, so you can go to aka.ms/Teams AppCamp if you want to register. It's a 1 hour webcast. And the next steps I would say is visit the App Camp. You can also request for Microsoft support in this link. And also watch us on YouTube. It actually helps because we have tried and put out as many videos as possible, so you can understand even the basics, when you're starting off as a developer for Teams. Cool. So that's all from my end, and maybe I will stop sharing and we can have a small discussion, Q&A sort of a deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia, for the explanation, and I think it was really resourceful. And if you can share those links in the
Sure.
chat box, that would be really helpful for them
Sure,
to
sure.
go directly to you.
What I would do is, Sarag, I will send this PowerPoint to you,
Mhm.
and then you can extract them. So should I just go through the chat because I haven't seen any of those. Yes, it works for Mac. Yes, because I use a Mac, so that should be fine. Could you please send the link to the GitHub page? Yes, I can send you the link. If we have time, I can show you the adaptive cards towards the end as well. It's really cool because it's a playground. But let me just go through the questions first. Okay, so I don't know about the certificate question, Surag. I'm hoping that's for you. Where's the link for the certificate? Can we use Teams to add specific business website checks? Someone messaged the admin for query. I'm not sure what that means towards the end. Of course, you can bring your business website, but to check if someone messaged the admin for query, what does that mean? I would love if someone, Raver, can go ahead and unmute and ask this question or explain a bit further. Yes, you can bring any website into Teams, provided you need to tweak a bit, and that will be something you'll be doing in Lab 1 and Lab 2, if you want SSO. So if you're ready, you can unmute yourself, Raver, or I will move on to the next question. Question number 1 by Krishna Raj. Oh, great, you're actually working on Teams app. To integrate the website, something, but my manager was concerned about using an iframe for it. Well, everything is an iframe when you think about it. Yeah, I understand your security issue, which is why integrating it with Teams SSO is the right way to do it. So please go ahead and check out lab number 2. Krishnaraj, so you can safely and securely connect it, because this is what we're teaching, right? So we are not putting just an iframe and saying, hey, just look at this website. It's not going to work. To be honest with you, it might have issues. So you need to integrate with the actual, you need your application to create tokens on behalf of you and go ahead and do all the right things to get auth working. And that's why we have a detailed section in lab number 2. Maybe I'll just put the link to it, which does everything that you need for securely getting your app into Teams. So for Krishna Raj, cool. And question number 2, I'm currently using Node.js and React framework to integrate the tabs and available services. Oh, that's great. Yeah, actually, you're doing the right thing. React framework is probably the most efficient, I would say, because even the designs that we have at the moment, the framework, we only have React components in Fluent. So, which is for the design aspects, we've got many reusable components as well. So I guess it's the right thing to do. Although I would say it doesn't really matter, wherever your app is hosted, it's fine. I mean, if it's a TypeScript or JavaScript, it's also fine. The reason why we opted for JavaScript in AppCamp is because JavaScript is like a universal language that everybody can follow. You might not be a React developer, you might not be an Angular developer. So we didn't want to say, hey, only React developers can do this. That's why we chose JavaScript, so it's easy for everyone to understand. You're on the right track, and good job for that. Question number 3, please advise me on using SSO for services. Yes, I have actually given that to you. So go ahead and have a look. Obviously, auth isn't as simple as we, just speak about it and it works. It's going to be probably the hardest bit, but you'll get there. I mean, if you have your basics brushed up with all the videos and everything, I think there's no cause for concern. Link for, okay, certificate is being asked a lot. Yeah, cool. So Srinivasan has another question. I would like to show the app insights, specific details in the app. Yes, so insights, I'm thinking you want some sort of, how much your app is used and things like that. Well, it's something you need to build using insights. I'm sure there are many insight services available. Even Azure probably has one. So you'll need to integrate it yourself. And displaying detail is something you can always do in using a tab or something. Hope that answers your questions, because it basically depends on what you want to show and what services you use for your insights. If you have your data, if you know how to display it in a chart, I don't see any reason why you can't show that. Cool. Any more questions? You can also come off mute if you want. I'm happy to take as many questions, but if you want to even write these questions to and send it across to me, I'm happy to do that. You can reach to me on LinkedIn as well. Let me just put I probably should have done this in my presentation, but I didn't, because cool. So if you've got any questions, you could reach out to Surag and probably he can compile these questions. Cool. Krishnaraj has another question. Is phasing API? I'm having course problem. This may be because of my request header local sending request to my REST API calls. Not really, because you're going to connect to your Teams application using your Azure AD registration, and that itself should be able to take care of all that. Or is it just I can ask server dev to add? No. So you'll need to, so that's the thing. You'd need to have your application, if you're running locally, point to a HTTPS link that is available through a browser. Once that is done, you can package it up and you can upload it. And this link should probably be, exposed in your Azure AD registration. And that's how the Teams client knows that, oh, okay, it's actually a legit link coming from a legit service, right? So you learn all about that in the labs. You won't have that sort of issues if you have authentication done in the right way. And you'll be using Teams JavaScript SDK to do that, to get the tokens and everything. Cool. So any more questions? And oh, yeah, adaptive cards. I'll just send you this link if we don't have time. Just go ahead and have a look at all these samples. It's pretty cool because this is also when I got really interested and started building all my cards and using the adaptive cards. It's just a JSON structure, but you will be able to create some fun stuff. So as you can see, this has samples, it has blogs. You even have a playground called Designer. So you can go ahead and create adaptive cards in one of the labs, which is the extend labs. You have areas where you create adaptive cards, so it'll be fun for you to play around with it. Cool. Over to you, Surag, if you've got some housekeeping to do towards the end.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think there is no more questions that is left to be asked. And also shared the certificate of participation in the chat box, so you guys can go there and fill it out. And thank you. I think we can wind up the session since there is no more questions. And thank you, Rabia, again for the session. It was interactive, and we all went through the how you can really build that up into Microsoft Teams. So yeah, and thank you all for joining with us today. And be sure to check out the link. And if you haven't joined the community yet, please do make sure you join. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.